Hello, my name is Spyros Koutras. I'm running the schools in Greece, Cyprus, Turkey, and Romania. I've been with the school since 2006 as a coach, and I picked up the management and the operation side at 2011. Well, it all started when I was at the tender age of 9 years old, when I saw the first race of Kenny Roberts racing with the big boys. And since then, motorcycles was a big part of my life. Never owned a car, never will own a car, never have a license for a car. Since then, I've been having motorcycles on and off. I used to race before I go for my studies abroad. Uh, I picked up magazines once, Motorcyclist, and it was a big article about Keith Code and how his school transformed the way a rider understands his riding. I think it was early 80s, and since then I bought all his books and I was following him all the way through what he was doing, what he was writing. Since then, I always want to go to his school as a student. I tried many times until I finally achieved that in 2002, uh, which is a long story actually. But and since then, I'm an advocate for the school and what it offers, and now I have the opportunity to have it as my job. My first contact with Keith actually was back in 1992 when it was my graduation present for my finishing my postgraduate degree. So I traveled all the way from Boston, Massachusetts to LA to do a 2-day camp in Willow Springs. Fortunately then it was wet and the school was canceled. It used to rain back then every 70 years in the desert, and guess what day I went there? So I met Keith. I spent the whole day with him walking around the track, begging him to show me something. He never did, of course, but he still remembers me. So after that, I came to Athens. I started my business career, and when the school came to Greece, I picked it up right from there. It's one of those days, yes. One of those things that I still remember. The funny thing, when I met Keith Code after I met Keith in 2012, and I told him the story. He goes, "Yeah, I remember you," and he was pretty serious about it. He remembered the whole discussion we had. It was scary. That fact, he remembered me after I don't know 20 years or something. It's scary. As I said, motorcycles was a big part of my life. I used to race in Athens before I go, but I had to pay my bills. So I chose to go study abroad. Always had a soft spot for the States, for the education part of the States. So I went to the States for my undergraduate and my postgraduate degree. I spent there 7 years in Boston, Massachusetts, Suffolk University. It sounds British, but it's New England, so it has to sound English. I finished my undergraduate there and my postgraduate degree in business and corporate finance. Uh, I tried to get a job, but 92 when I graduated was the start of the American recession, the last 6 years. So I had to come back, even though my plan was to stay there. So there goes a big stop in my career in terms of developing. But I used to, when I went to the States, part of my undergraduate training in the school was also in racing. I got involved in racing and also helped people to race. So I did some motorcycling then, but my main focus was the school. Well, I have to start my the history line a little bit further back. After I came back from the States, um, I did my army, which is mandatory in my country, for 2 years, and then I started working in my as a business analyst for the company. I was progressing pretty quickly because that's I like to move forward. And then I had a big accident on riding on the street. Uh, the big accident showed me two things mainly. That you need to train to ride a motorcycle. So you have to understand how to ride well your motorcycle, despite all those years of quote unquote racing. And two is that everything is possible once you decide to do it. So I knew California Superbike School was the best school in the world based on what I was reading and everybody else was doing. But I made a promise to myself to be 100% certain that I'm going to the best school in the world. So I spent considerable amount of time of going to all the schools available at that time in the world. I went to Kevin Swan School, I went to Freddie Spencer School, I went to European Superbike School back then. I went to Ron Haslam School. So I did all the schools, and I left last the California Superbike School that happened to come to Greece at the same time. The funny thing is that once I finished the school, it was the first time I actually realized what I was doing in my motorcycle. So since then, I agree I have a passion for motorcycles, which is my main passion. And for that, it's only one school. That's where the one school, one passion comes from. After all those years and I think I have over 400 school days in my bag. I think people all need to understand how to ride a motorcycle, shown in a very specific and clear way. And once you get that knowledge, as I always used to say, your love for motorcycles will grow up again. It will spur up again. So, and all those years, and every time we finish the school, it's the same feeling. You see people fall in love with motorcycles again, and they have a happy face that they didn't have in the morning. So, always finding love is a good thing in your life. What always never ceases to amaze me is the mere fact that despite that you travel all around the world and see people with different cultures, backgrounds, educational backgrounds, society backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, when they put the leathers and ride on a motorcycle, we are the same exactly human beings. And we all face the same problems, and the only thing is to find a solution around them. And it is simple as that. Motorcycle takes out everything else, and it's the same issues with everybody. And that's the beautiful thing about the school, which has able to give you the core of understanding of motorcycling. So, and if you take all the social, cultural, religion, wealth status, whatever you call it, out of the picture, it's just you and your motorcycle. And if you can understand that connection very well, you're a happy person. That's never ceases to amaze me. What the school teaches, and that's most impressive about this school, is you actually understand what you're doing, which means that if you do it well, you see immediate result and satisfaction. If you do it wrong, you can immediately see the mistake. As I said before, I was given the opportunity to do all the other schools available at that time, so I could actually compare and see what the others were offering. At the end of my level one, even, I knew what I was doing wrong all those years. I understand why I was doing that wrong. And if you are somebody who pays attention to his mistakes and wants to learn from his mistakes, because that's why we learn, what's the most important, this gives you a continuous learning process and understanding of motorcycling. And that knowledge is so hard to find. And the way Keith has broken down in pieces, it makes easy to digest by anybody. And since then, since I became a level one graduate back in 2002, Every time I put my leg over my motorcycle, it's a learning process. It's always picking up mistakes that I do and correcting them. And every time I'll go always more safer, faster, more confident, and that multiplies every day. I like to ride any type of motorcycle. I'm not fan of motorcycles off-road. I don't, even though I think it's a very good practice. I always like racing because my first impact was again Kenny Roberts with his knee down. I like equally touring. I like equally just riding around in the country roads. And as long as there's a motorcycle under my legs, well, I'm happy. My first picture was the first picture with motorcycles is that King Kenny with the yellow leathers putting his knee down and always like stay in my head that picture, and I was impressed of what he's doing, how he's doing it. So since then it's my goal not to put my knee down, but always try to understand the art of cornering. It's much more fun to ride your motorcycle than just to be a passenger on it. Uh, and it's all about falling in love with something that you know that you like. Once you know how to ride it, you fall in love much, much easier.